Welcome back to the Life Currency Podcast. I'm your host, Bob Lozano, and we have a special treat for you. We're revisiting powerful voices from TEDx McAllen, a token series. Get ready for some life currency.
Social First is collaborating with Live Currency Podcast to give away 2 VIP tickets. Yes, 2 VIP tickets to Social First coming up in November 12th and 13th. And make sure to follow the instructions in the captions below. I've had the privilege of working with Bob from FMP Media and Live Currency Podcast on the Social First committee, and we're very excited to bring a jam-packed event to the content creating community and to the business community overall. Definitely looking forward to it. And don't forget to like and subscribe and follow the Live Currency Podcast and Social First experience.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on energy? You believe in energy?
Absolutely. I think it's the fundamental to everything that we do. The more energy you have, the more you're able to make things happen. The less energy you have, the less you're excited to make things happen. So I strongly believe in it.
I like that, man. Energy's good, man. First time meeting you, but energy's good. I like it. How do you, a lot of our listeners are family-owned businesses or they own their own businesses. What would you say about managing your literal energy levels and how do you go about that? Avoid burnout, etc.
Well, that's a very good question. I think for the most part, I think a lot of people underestimate what it takes to have consistent energy. And one of the first things I personally identify is having good rest. People underestimate that. And I have underestimated that for myself for the most part. But taking advantage of that is everything, resting. And, sometimes it might be just an hour, taking time off. It might be a day taking time off, but it just re-energizes me in the best possible way. And there is times where I burn out, and I will be honest, in business, there will be those times. And I think when those times happen, the best thing to do is to figure it out and know that, hey, you're experiencing some really low times, which is burning out. Take that time, even if it's a day off work. That's what I personally do. If I feel burnt out, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I just take a day off and just reconnect. Sometimes it's hard to just ignore work in a full day, but for the most part, I think I'm able to reconnect with everything and then come back, more energized, ready to go, stronger.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, man. Self-awareness. I think I was listening to a study one time that they were saying that, some people, have less self-awareness and they literally have less of a voice. You believe in that? You're just...
Yes.
Yeah, kind of almost NPC style,
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Having self-awareness, I think, is the fundamental to everything we do. Because if you're not self-aware, you're not emotionally intelligent. If you're not self-aware, how do you deal with employees or how do you deal with people around you? I think it's very important. It's very fundamental to everything we do.
That's crazy. You do anything special for sleep or you just...
I have difficulty sleeping. I will be very honest. I have a lot of difficulty sleeping. One thing I started doing is putting my devices away because, I used to always have them next to me just in case someone needs me urgently. And who needs you urgently at 2 a.m.? But I used to do it. It was a habit.
Mm-hmm.
Started putting those away. And that's been very helpful. Also getting tired. So I'm very active. I play soccer, kickball, volleyball. When I get tired, it's easy for me to go to sleep or to fall asleep and sleep well. So I think that's helped a lot in a lot of the things I do.
Makes a lot of sense. So you obviously have to manage the creative process. Can you speak a little bit about how to still manage a routine and be organized and have, a routine versus being this creative mind, right? And how have you found that balance?
Yeah. It's a good question you ask because we always talk about it when within our team. Most creative people are not very well organized. That's definitely one thing that I think most people already know. And so sometimes we lean into that. So for example, our creative team, we understand that they need some structure and we don't necessarily rely on them to have that structure. We rely on other members of the team to have that structure to help balance things out. And so for me personally, there was times where I need that structure. And I think having a business partner has been one of the best things or best decisions I took, because it helps me have that balance. I can be on a creative tirade and just go off on everything I need, but I come back to ground zero. There's someone who always helps, keeps me accountable of this is what I need to get done, and this is the order in which I need to get it done. And that helps. Recently I was struggling with, having some sort of a structure of, okay, what needs to get done in a certain period of time, and then I realized that I love having reward after I achieve something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay, the simplest thing I can do is do a simple to-do list, write it down. And then after I get them done, I just check it off. And that brought me some sort of emotional satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started doing that, and it's 100% kept me very organized and just making sure I do everything that I need to do while staying within that creative process.
I like that. Yeah, kind of back to that self-awareness piece, right? Trying to understand ourselves and understand that basically all of us as humans, we're susceptible to kind of that carrot and stick mentality, right? And we just have to give ourselves a little bit of that carrot, but it takes some of that self-awareness, especially as a business owner. So
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
You do most of the creative, or do y'all have a system between you mentioned partnership?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
we
we have
find roles or do the same?
Yes. So we have a very good creative team. We have assigned very good roles within the team as well. One thing we realized on is you have to get people who are very good at what they're doing, and you have to know what your weaknesses are and accept that you're not great at it. You can learn it, but there's someone who is way better at it than you. So for example, I am not the best at sales. And so we have a sales team that is better than I am. I am not the best at operations or, management and all that. We have one of our business partners who is great at it and keeps us on track. And so I find myself in a role that suits me the most, and I think I thrive in it. So it's identifying what those roles are and just accepting that that's what you're good at, and then just being confident in it. And the more confident you are, the more you grow in that role. And we've identified that for almost everyone on our team, where we say, okay, you are more of a creative person. We'll put you in a creative team. You're more structural. We'll put you in project management. We're able to identify some of those early on. And then eventually we just assign the best roles for the best individuals.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You believe in some business owners have different view, like they view firing individuals differently, right? Sometimes it's a very difficult confrontation, right? So how do you know when the time is right, or is there ever a right time to fire someone?
That's such a great question, because I was just giving a talk recently, and I said that the biggest thing or the hardest thing for me was firing. 100%. Because looking at someone and telling them, hey, you're not going to have a sense of livelihood the next month or the next 2 months was just very hard for me. And I remember the first time I had to let people go, I shed some tears, because we build a close, tight family at our organization, and everyone who is part of the vision believes in what we're doing, and it's like a family.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing is knowing when to let them go. And for us, it was, if it doesn't fit with the culture, that's the biggest thing for us, the culture. Because, people can learn the skills. What they can't learn is their character, and if they fit with your culture. And so that's one of the main things. We hire people who we believe will fit the culture. And if they don't, after a certain time, we have to let them go. We also need to put systems in place, obviously. So let's say someone is, having attitude problems or productivity problems. We're like, okay, how can we put out a work plan for them to follow? Okay, if you achieve these goals, you'll be on the right track. If they don't meet those goals, then we have a conversation. So we have a system, obviously the regular verbal warning, the written warning, and then having to make the decision to let them go. But we make sure that we have a plan for them first and say, okay, like, you're struggling here. This is how we think you can be better.
Mm-hmm.
And then if after those consistent, tries, if that doesn't work, then we have to make the decision to let them go. And that decision never comes from an emotional place. It comes from a logical place because we have those systems in place.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of managing multi-unit businesses and being able to scale them, culture is such an integral part, right? And sometimes, something that we apply at our company and something we, even our team today wore them on their shirts, but are non-negotiables, right? So things that we just don't negotiate. Do you have a few non-negotiables for yourself or for your team?
Yeah, we do. I think the biggest one is just asking for help and showing up. So a lot of times people think they can do it all, and we know ourselves that no one has all the answers. So those are some of the things, but one of them also is just tardiness, because we want to make sure that everyone respects everyone's time. Our team is very good on making sure they show up on time when needed. We have a policy. We have a policy that if you're more than 15 minutes late, you bring tacos for the entire office, or you bring some breakfast for the entire office.
Yeah.
But when it becomes a habit, then it becomes a problem. Then
Sure.
that becomes, hey, that can never happen. So, that's one of them.
You got anybody that just holds tacos in their car already?
All the time.
They're ready for it.
We know a few of them,
Yeah.
but it gets better. Once we have a conversation and
Sure.
say, hey, this is becoming a habit. But then again, you think about it, if they also don't want to be spending money buying tacos every single morning. And so one of the things that it helps with, it builds, culture of like, this is not a toxic workplace where if you're late once, twice, you're let go. We understand that life happens. But when you inconvenience someone on their time, then you have to make up for it. And I think tacos is a great way we can all say
I like that.
and can make up for it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I like that. What are your thoughts on being in the creative space and more of your traditional work times versus untraditional, and how do you balance that?
That's a very good question. So when we first started Brand Genius, one of the things we implemented was a 30-hour work week. Just to make sure that we are our team isn't burnt out. And so the team comes in from 10 to 4, sometimes 10 to 5. On Fridays, they come in later from 12 to 5. And it doesn't mean that they won't work more hours. It just means that we are allowing that space for them to kind of get in and get work done if they need to at home. Because some of them, might have to work at home. When you work in social media, you work 24/7. That's one thing people don't know. We're working during Christmas. We're working, outside hours. And so that allows us and allows them to have that freedom to be able to get that done. Obviously, for different brands, that will not work. The creative industry is different. But in office, those are some of the things we do. We say, okay, we understand that you might be going through certain things, or you need some creative time, creative freedom to think well. And so we allow some of that spaces. There's times where we also have implemented remote days. So twice out of the month, the team gets to work remote, and we still meet together virtually. But it helps them feel that there's something good going on, and people love remote work these days, don't they? So we have to.
You believe in remote work?
I think everyone on the team will know that I always want them in the office. I always, and that's me being honest. I always want to see them. I want to have that conversation with them.
Look them in the eye,
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
Good connection.
That's personally. But I think as business owners, we also need to have the emotional intelligence to know that what do majority of the people want, and sometimes you have to kind of negotiate, and that negotiation comes down to, okay, you just make sure you come to the office Monday through Friday. However, twice a month, we'll give you some remote days off, and I think the team was very happy with that policy we put in place.
That's cool, man. I want to circle back to a topic that you hit on, systems and processes. I think that sometimes it's kind of like a little hairy beast that some people, you can do it really well or you can do it really poorly, and it can accelerate someone's success, but it also can hinder it. I mean, how have you approached systems and processes, and particularly approach them in the creative space, like media?
That's a very tough one, because if I'm being honest with you, I did not have media experience. And when I say media experience, agency experience before building our agency. So none of us business partners had agency experience. And so everything we built was from scratch, all the systems we built. But one thing people don't understand is systems are effective or are built well once you realize a mistake or a fault in your process. So we went through some of the motions of like making mistakes. And then once that mistake happens, we're like, okay, how can we make sure this mistake doesn't happen again? And that's where we say, okay, let's put this in place to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen. And that's how we consistently built and built and built. And I think right now we have an incredible and robust system across board, from operations to marketing to sales, and it just helps everything transition. However, we never stop building systems, because there's always things that fall within the cracks. Something happens and you're like, okay, like, why did this happen? Why didn't the client receive what they expected at the specific time? Something fell between the cracks. How can we fix it? It's like you put something to bring it together. And so we, every day, every month, we're building new systems, and we never stop with it. Yeah.
It's good. It's good to find that balance. Media and video is very interesting, and I think with a lot of the folks that we either work with or we talk with, or a lot of our listeners, they have their own brands, right? And I think that it's such a distinct difference between marketing and branding, right? And I think, I'll let you talk about it, but what are your thoughts on building a brand, and specifically storytelling? And what advice would you give people that are trying to build a brand and storytell their brand?
That's a very good question. And I think some of what I spoke about today, building a brand is being able to effectively communicate the value you have in the best way possible. And so there's a lot of times where, people tell stories, but they don't tell it in a way that it's valuable. It's like, okay, you can tell a story, but can you tell a story where anyone can understand what you're talking about? It doesn't matter. Like, you're not telling a story to just people or your peers. You're telling a story to a wider audience. Can you find out who that audience is? And can you effectively, deliver that message to them? And so when it comes to building a brand, like, fundamentally, like, yes, storytelling is important. You have to know how to tell a very good story, but you also need to know how to deliver the value that you have. And one thing I, tell my students is, marketing is simply communicating the value you have to an audience. So one person can have a specific brand or a specific company, and they think they do the same thing. Two different people thinking they do the same thing, but one person is probably considered, let's say Texas Monthly says, hey, you have the best tacos in Texas. And the other person says, hey, no, like, people actually think my tacos is the best. I have it. It's very good. It tastes good, like whatever. But they can't be the same, because one of them is communicating their value effectively. They're telling their story, and they're getting people to understand why. Why do I have the best tacos? And if you're able to effectively break down the value you have, and tell that story in a very simple way where everyone can understand. If you tell a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old, would they know what you do without overcomplicating the situation? And so those are some of the things we look at when it comes to brand building, is just make it simple. You make it as simple as possible and communicate your value effectively to people.
I like the way you worded that. What would you say to people that, because I feel like there's this like conflict with some people with marketing, because maybe they want to live a humble lifestyle and don't want to, push a message or market necessarily. How do you break that barrier, and what would you tell business owners that are kind of not shy, but you know what I mean? Like they just don't want to really go for it and market their brand.
It means you're selfish. Yeah, unfortunately. The reason why I say that is I don't look at marketing as just showing off. It's, again, communicating value. So if you fail to communicate the value you have as a business to someone who could benefit from it, then you're failing to help people. And that's all we do. Like, as a business, we're here to help other people. And so someone somewhere needs your help. Someone somewhere wants to be fed well. Someone somewhere needs your services. And so if you're not out there sharing as much as possible and communicating what you have to the rest of the world, then you're doing everybody a disservice. And so that's one of the things, like, I tell people is we need to stop thinking about marketing in a very negative connotation, which makes sense. A lot of people hear marketing and, they go crazy these days. But let's think about it from a very simple point of view. We just want to communicate the value that we all have to a huge amount of an audience. So let me use this example. Personal injury lawyers. A lot of people see personal injury lawyers and think, oh, they're just like, ambulance chasers, or they're trying to just, get a bunch of money, which is not wrong, I would say. However, recently, one of my former students got into an accident, and I was like, hey, you get yourself an attorney. She said, oh, like, I don't have money to pay an attorney. And I said, you don't need to pay an attorney to get a compensation you deserve. But she didn't know that. And so if the attorneys out there do not communicate effectively that, hey, I can help you without you having to, pay any money upfront or whatever, she will not get the help she deserves. And she'll probably be lowballed by insurance companies or whatever. But that is what I see as value, is being able to communicate that, helping someone no matter what situation they're in. So if whatever service you provide, just you can be of great service to someone. So don't be selfish.
I like how you flip that script a little bit. Yeah. Let's talk about some things that you've worked on or done or implemented that you noticed there was a significant return. And this can be anything from a piece of technology. It can be from, a cultural change. But what's something that you remember that you've implemented that gave you a large return and gave you a lot of value?
Sometimes it's really hard. I love software. I'm a huge software guy. And there are certain things that sometimes you think about and it's like a huge investment and you're like, okay, like, is this worth it? Like, and one of the softwares we used in the past for our sales process is we went through several meetings and I was very convinced. I was very like, we need to get this. And eventually I pushed for it. We ended up getting it. Could have blown back in my face or whatever, but it was very expensive. And out of that software, we got the biggest client we've ever received from that specific, software we took.
Like a CRM software? It's a relationship for
it's a lead.
Oh, okay.
It's a lead software.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
And so that really just helped out.
You told me you weren't a sales guy, man. You're bringing a lead info here.
Right. I mean, not me. I got it for the sales team.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good one. You got me there. So we invested in that for our sales team, and we got the biggest client we've ever gotten to date, and it was only because we took that step when we made that decision. Culture wise, I think that everyone knows that when it comes to Brand Genius, culture is what makes us great. Everything we do. So just making sure that before we hire anyone, we can tell if they will fit our culture. We do a personality test for every single one of our new hires, or even in the interview, we do a personality test just to see if they will fit, how their vibe is, their energy, like we talked about earlier. Those are a lot of the things we look at. Because like I said, skills, you can train anybody, but what you can't train them on is their character.
Is anybody
what you believe in?
Ran away after they got a personality test? They just said, "Oh, screw this, man. I'm out."
Hopefully, no, not yet. That would have been weird. But
He's gonna be like, "I'm out."
Yeah, no more.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned about software, and it's crazy the direction that we're moving in with technology. Your leadership skills obviously shine through in your living through that, how have you approached technology, and does that present a fear? Because there's obviously a inherent threat with some of the aspects of marketing, right? With so much change and AI, et cetera. But yeah, is that more of a fear? Is that more of a positive? How do you view that?
Absolutely not. If you know me, you know that I am 100% all for technology. And I don't see it as a threat to my business or to anybody within our field. I think it's actually a help. It makes us more efficient and more productive. And so that's how I want to look at it. I don't look at, AI or any of these technological changes as anything that can affect us negatively. You only allow it to affect you negatively if you think about it that way. And so we embrace it. We use it to complement the skills that we have, and it makes us 10 times more productive. And so, I teach at UTRGV, and, I tell my students, it's like, go ahead and use it. I teach them how to use it effectively, because whether you like it or not, the students will always go for it. And
Can you give me an example?
For an example, when we come up with content ideas, I think our team thrives on the ideas. We have some of the best ideas that out there. I can confidently say that about them. However, there is times where you want to be affirmed, you want to be complimented on your ideas, and we can go back to AI, for example, and say, hey, like, these are some of the ideas we have. How can you expand on it? Give us some ideas. It helps us write scripts. It makes, at first it will take about an hour, 2 hours to write a script. Now we can get a script done in 10 to 15 minutes. That's productivity right there. So just embracing it has done a lot for us, and we've been able to use it effectively to our advantage. And then, finally, even when it comes to video editing, a lot has changed. And a lot has changed to where now we're able to use AI to edit some of our videos, help us with captions where you don't have to manually do it. Time it took to edit videos, short form videos went from about 2 to 3 hours to about 30 minutes now. So it does a lot for us.
And you talked about ideas. I feel like that's such a big topic in marketing. What do you tell someone that's on your team and feels like the idea is maybe better than another, and how do you handle that idea sharing process, right? Because collaboration is so important, but then there's like this, there could be, right, potential egos or pride or etc. I mean, how do you tackle that?
Leave your egos at the door.
Yeah.
And it's good that you mentioned collaboration, because I think that's fundamentally all we do. No one on the team is better or stronger or has better ideas than anyone. And that's what we let everyone understand. Whether you're an intern or a full-time staff, you can share your ideas. And we always have this saying that no idea is a bad idea. If you think about it that way, it allows us to improve upon whatever idea we may think is not good enough. And so someone will put out an idea, and we don't just say, oh, that's a terrible idea, or that's not a good idea. We say, okay, how can we improve upon it? And I think when we do that consistently, it's built a culture within a team where everyone wants to share. And when we have idea sessions for clients, everyone is just pitching out ideas. It's just coming. And then someone might not necessarily like it. They're just like, okay, how about we frame it this way? And that just makes the difference.
Yeah, I like that. I like that from a culture standpoint. But is there something have you ever had a bad idea? They just like fell flat.
So
yeah. No, I don't that come to mind.
Yeah, no.
You're just like, damn, I screwed that one up.
That's a good one. Not that I can think of right now, but I always have bad ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I own it. Sometimes I like it when people are tough with me. So for me, I tell my business partners, hey, if this is a bad idea, you can let me know, and that's totally fine. So yeah, I do have a lot of them where my business partners will look at me and be like, are you serious? And then it just gives me a chance. Okay, you know what? Maybe let me rethink it. I didn't mean it like that. But we have a very good culture amongst us, at least the leadership, where we can share whatever, we can tell each other whatever comes to mind, and no one takes it personal. We understand that we just do what needs to be done in order to be successful.
That's cool, man. Yeah, culture, big deal, powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Do you feel like any channels, marketing channels are, I mean, we're going through such a shift right now. Do you feel like any of them are obsolete, or there's, some that basically you won't ever advocate for?
That's a very good question. Um, well, I don't advocate for X. There's some brands that thrive on X or Twitter, um, but we don't push it. Cost per lead is higher, and most of our clients don't. That's not where they want to grow or thrive on.
Mm-hmm.
We believe in video content, and so everywhere where there is video, that's where we're at. So we're pushing for YouTube, we're pushing for TikTok, we're pushing for Facebook and Instagram. Those are the platforms that prioritize video because video is currency now. And we're moving towards that world now. I mean, we're doing this podcast right now, because that's value that people want. However, eventually we get to learn certain things. So short form video is trending right now, and that's where most people want to be at. So we try to get into that. And when you go into the back end, for example, Facebook, you realize that the watch time on some videos is like 10 seconds, 7 seconds, or even less. And so people's attention span has completely been it's just gone down. You have to go with the times. You have to accept it, focus more on short form content. That's where it works the best. And if you're on YouTube, I mean, you can definitely put out some long form content, because people who go on there are just specifically going there for long form content. But I would say LinkedIn, this is a good one as well. But I personally, one thing, I'm huge. I love X. I love Twitter. I'm always on Twitter, but I don't recommend it for our clients.
And you said LinkedIn's a good one, as in good to use or good
It's good
examples?
to use. Yes,
Okay.
it's good to use.
Yeah.
It just builds your overall brand in general. Sometimes LinkedIn can get very congratulatory when it's just like, I just got a new job, I just did this, but people are still on there professional wise, and they want to connect with more professional people as well.
That's interesting, man. The team building aspect and the creative, in the creative realm, it's I feel like there's a big contrast between smaller agencies and larger agencies. You want to be a small, large, medium? Do you have aspirations to, and what's the vision here?
That's a great one. We want to be a large agency vision wise of what we want to achieve, but we don't want to have the large agency culture. So we want to take the small agency culture into the large agency space. And that's how we want to dominate in that area. I think when we first started Brand Genius, no one really was doing content marketing the way we did it. And so again, a lot of the things we did were new. We like crazy ideas. I mean, when we started marketing for attorneys, most of them weren't on TikTok or like doing any dances or trends or whatever. But we wanted to take the personable aspect of it. If everyone is doing marketing a certain way, how can we change it? How can we make you feel more personable, more approachable? And that's the approach we took. And so we never want to go away from that fundamental value that we have. Even though we have aspirations to be, a big agency, possibly outside of Texas, serving clients outside of Texas. We want to keep that culture of, that close knit with our clients, with our employees. We still want to keep that intact. Yeah.
Have you ever turned anyone down?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Why?
For example, politicians. We don't necessarily work with politicians, or anyone in politics, not because we don't believe in it, but simply because we personally don't want to get into that space. And so we've had to turn down some of those. We've also had to turn down some regular brands that don't align with our values. So we want to make sure that everything we do, just again, has the potential to be successful, and then there's that energy where we can work together effectively, and it just makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you got to be kind of selfish with it. You don't want to be doing all this work and then be like, man, I don't like these people.
Yeah, and you can't be for everybody. You have to.
And then they're all successful because your marketing's great. You're just sitting there all bitter. No, that's crazy, man. Yeah, what the creativity? I know you spoke about routine and process and discipline, etc. But what are some out of the box ideas, man? How do you get your creativity other than technology or things that we talked about? I mean, is there some wacky ways that you're trying to get creative? Is there stuff that you look at some days and you're just like an idea pops up, or what? Where do you get that from?
It's our everyday life. So, for example, people don't understand or people don't know that we live what we want to see. So, if you are a consumer, if you are you are a consumer for many businesses, right? Sometimes you need to take the ideas you have, because sometimes I'm sure you look at certain brands and you're like, oh, they can do this better, or they should do this, or this was such a good idea for them. It's like you can still apply no matter what business it is. Like fundamentally, you can apply a lot of content ideas or just like business ideas in general to a lot of different brands. When you go into the details of it, you might realize maybe it might not work the same way you expect it to, but fundamentally you understand that, okay, if we do it this way, it might be different from what everyone else is doing, but it can work. So, and I say that because we took the same mentality into law, like I talked about. You know, we said, okay, everyone has a personal brand, for example, and influencers are out there sharing a lot of content, and people are following influencers for a reason. And so, why can't we make the businesses or the brands be their own influencers? And so, those are some of the things we looked at. We're like, no one wants to follow a business. Like, people don't care about following a business unless you're, Duolingo or something. But people want to follow brands or businesses that feel personalized or personable to them. And so those are some of the things we look at. And idea-wise, we take the idea from somewhere completely different. So a different industry, and we say, how can we apply it into this other industry? It might sound crazy, but once you execute on it, you're like, this isn't such a bad idea. People might criticize you at first for it, but they're going to love you eventually. And we saw that work at the beginning of what we're doing when we said, hey, let's take this idea of making, certain brands, influencers, implement it. They got some stick for it. They got some negative comments for it, but now they're loved and revered by a lot of people. So that's one of the ways. Creative process wise, honestly, you have to consume a lot. You have to consume a lot. You have to consume what's out there, content that is out there. And it just gives you inspiration to say, okay, maybe this is what we can implement in both ways. And there's a saying that if something works, don't reinvent the wheel. So if you find a trend that has worked perfectly well for someone else, you can implement it in your business and just be successful with it.
A lot of different directions that I'd love to go, man, but I appreciate what you're doing. You're obviously dedicating your time here today, speaking, sharing with our community. That's a big deal. You're obviously sitting here with me, sharing. I value that. I think it takes a certain level of confidence, obviously humility and a purpose.
Great podcast you got.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
I believe in what it is and what it stands for. So
thank you, man. It's all about life currency. Yeah, man. Just pretty straightforward. But yeah, what are things we can share or gain from others that we can apply in our life, right?
Yeah.
Professional or personal. And you've done a lot of that today. So I really appreciate you. Yeah. This has been fun, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I never know. Maybe I have to run it back sometime. So
hey, I'm down. Say less.
Appreciate your time.
If I have some DQ, I'll probably eat.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we got it in the back there waiting for you.
Yeah.
Nah, man, I really appreciate your time. This means a lot, and thanks for your kind words. But we'll keep it rocking, man.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me.